So they state that evolution took time, right?
Sure.
Took many years for us to evolve.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so why do we still have monkeys and apes on the planet?
Okay.
Do you have
understand what I'm saying? Why don't we have? I'm not arguing, right? But why do we have? Why do we have in between? I mean, why don't we have the in between evolution? And we still have those genetic genes.
That's actually
in
a very
monkeys,
good question.
and monkeys are still monkeys, and apes are still apes, and gorillas are still gorillas. But you don't find the in between. Examples of the scientific explanation of how man evolved.
I'd like to answer your question.
Yeah, sure.
This is a common question from people who don't have a lot of background in what evolutionary theory actually states. The fact is that every species is as much in transition from what its ancestors were to what its descendants are going to be as any other. It's an ongoing process. Now, get to specifically address this issue about, gorillas are still gorillas. Well, evolution does not say that, evolutionary theory does not say that simultaneously all gorillas are changing the same way. In fact, what evolution says is that individuals of all species are, as their descendants, are slightly changed in a wide variety of ways. Natural selection is the process that causes those descendants whose changes are more beneficial to them to survive. But another thing evolution does not imply is that all the members of one species change into one other particular species. If a million years from now, if you have two populations of gorillas on opposite sides of a mountain range, you will find that as they've evolved, they may very well have evolved in different directions, right? You might have some that are just fine the way they are, that don't change much because their characteristics are well suited for the environment that they are in. But on the other side of the mountain range, if there is some sort of different environmental conditions over there, that group might, over a million years, evolve into something that is a cousin to gorillas. You see, so it's this assumption that because species are still intact, that therefore there was no evolution, just misses the point. That's not what evolution implies.
Once a speciation event occurs, there's no particular reason why the two different species shouldn't sort of drift apart. And species tend to stay with each other, but not with the ancestor that they evolved from, which means that, humans and apes could start out here, but over time they go here, so that you don't see any intermediary forms.
Hey.
Hi.
I just wanted to kind of offer a little bit of a response to the guy that was talking about where are the in-between, I guess, prior human ancestor species.
Yes.
People a lot of times get hung up, I guess, with evolution, and they look at it in terms of, this is really far-fetched, and, when they're coming from a Christian perspective, and they don't really seem to accept that you can change the genetic makeup of a species over time. And what's weird to me about that stance is that we have species that people have done that to in very short amounts of time.
Yeah.
Like we breed cattle, we breed dogs, we breed cats. We change species like all the time by simply changing the way they can breed or inhibiting their breeding to specific animals.
Right, and I think technically you could interbreed like a Saint Bernard with a Chihuahua.
Right.
But in reality you couldn't, which makes them separate species.
The question that he was asking is almost like, where are the pre-Dachshunds? Where are those dogs that were the Dachshunds before they were Dachshunds? I mean, at some point you had a wild dog.
Well, they're dead.
Huh?
The dogs that came before the Dachshunds are dead.
Well, but I guess what I'm trying to say is you have the Dachshund, but you don't have the dogs that were bred into Dachshunds. That doesn't mean that God created Dachshunds.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because even creationists are basically forced to accept microevolution, and if you look at the shrewd creationists, there's pretty much none of them that say that, like, the dogs weren't all one species.
Right.
So when you say that, I think that's a good point to make to creationists.
Yeah, I mean, in a real, I mean, what you're doing is controlling the genetic population and controlling the breeding, and environment does that all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, but when it's people doing it, there's no argument.
I'm going to remember that. Thanks.
Then that's an important point. I've actually encountered creationists who, when given breeding programs by human beings as an example of, proof of the existence of the mechanism, they say, well, but that just proves there had to be some intelligent force making it happen. And no, as you said, the environments change over time,
sure,
and populations move around to new environments, and that changes the pressures on their breeding, and artificially does, or naturally does, what human beings do to them artificially when we
right.
breed.
I mean, it's just the same result with a different influence.
Yeah.
And everybody can see how the evolution occurs when we do breeding programs.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go ahead and bring that up.
Yeah, thanks.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks.
Sure, bye.
That's a really good analogy to make.